Welcome to Muslim Apologetics Australia. I raise a question to Christians because I was just reflecting on them to be consistent when they're trying to criticize and critique Islam. Christians keep going on about Muslims need to show the complete original Injeel. Otherwise, they say it doesn't exist. While my Christian friends, I would say on the contrary, show us the original stone tablet that had the Ten Commandments inscribed on stone that was originally handed down to Moses. If you cannot show this stone tablet, then your Old Testament and New Testament has no truth to this supposed inscription handed down to Moses. I hope now that gives some perspective to Christians to abandon such foolish arguments in case you're willing to face the same standard of criticism. So two Christians specifically came to try and entertain my question to them, and they basically hit a brick wall. And I'll go through the engagement. A Christian by the name of Stephen Tilley, and I've made videos against him before in the past, and he hasn't changed much. But so he basically says in response, since Muslims believe that there was an original Injeel given to Jesus that isn't in the New Testament, then by definition, the burden of proof is completely on you. What you're doing, Mustafa, is moving the burden of proof. And my response to Tilley is, I'm not of the Muslim view that the original is not contained within the New Testament. I believe portions have been preserved indeed within the New Testament, so not all is lost. You can see my article here, and I'll put a hyperlink below this video, and you can read it for yourself. Similarly, if you believe that God gave Moses these tablets, then the burden of proof is to show this original to prove biblical accuracy. After all, you wish to convince us that the Bible is accurate. Thus, the same standard applies. Christians say we are moving the burden of proof. No, we are moving it to show Christians the same criticism can be pointed at biblical criticism. Stephen Tilley writes back and says, in other words, you are moving the burden of proof. Thank you for admitting it. So I wrote back to Stephen and said, we are asking for consistency. As Dr. James White said, inconsistency is a sign of a failed argument. Stephen Tilley writes back and says, you're the one asserting that the Injeel isn't the New Testament, but parts of it. Hence you have a burden of justification, as the negative do as well, not denying that. My response, and what is your burden of proof to prove that Moses was given the tablets? Can you produce the original inscription of these 10 commandments? And let's see if those artifacts line up with both the Old Testament and the New Testament. So if asserting the New Testament has portions of the original Injeel, you're just going to deny they are in there. Yet you can not prove an original Ten Commandment tablet that was apparently handed down to Moses. See, this is the way the Christian tactics need to actually, they require revision and some updating. Stephen then writes back and says, oh, you did it again. You moved the burden of proof. Stop shifting. So he's becoming a troll now. Yeah, he's cornered. He's desperate. And so I said to him, oh, you're running and getting beaten over the head with your own stick. Why is that? And then he writes back and says, no, you're moving the burden of proof and I'm calling you out for it. Stop shifting. I said, keep running, coward. He says, stop shifting again. The proof and the justification is on you. And I said to him, you know what? Okay, fine. I'll actually meet the burden of proof if that's what you're asking. So I said to him, these pathetic Christians will say Allah spoke about the New Testament as the Injeel, which is a light and a guidance for mankind. So they use the Quran to say Allah called the New Testament the truth as the Injeel. Therefore, they argue Muslims cannot claim that the Bible as the Injeel is corrupt. But then the same Christians will say, give us evidence portions of the Injeel are found in the New Testament. I mean, how absurd. On one hand, they say that the Injeel is the New Testament because Allah said it is the truth and the light. And then on another hand, they're saying, give us the original Injeel. So Stephen Tilley wasn't prepared for this, and he gave that shock look on his face in the comments. And I said, are you not of the view that the Quran speaks of your Injeel as the truth and the light? I'm saying, why do you look shocked? He then repeats himself like a mad lunatic. Have a look. He says, you asserted a claim. You have a burden of justification. You repeatedly move the... No, I'm not removing the burden of proof anymore. I've actually addressed the question. I've proved the Christian standpoint. And I said, sure, I'll prove that your Bible has portions of the Injeel. And I repeated myself. I said, Stephen, are you not of the view that the Quran speaks of your Injeel as the truth and the light? I mean, Christians constantly bring this up to justify the truth of the Bible. And again, he says, stop shifting the burden of proof. I'm not shifting the burden of proof. I'm not going back to the Bible. I'm going to what the Christians say about the Quran on its approach upon the Bible. And I said to him, I met it. Reed, I guess you suffer from attention deficit disorder. I asked you a question that proves you agree that your Bible has truth and the light as the Injeel. And then he writes back and he says, no, you don't. You obviously don't know what burden of justification is. I mean, this guy is absolutely clueless now. I think he's had a bit too much to drink. I said to him, I showed you the burden of proof from a Christian standpoint of the Quran. I'm asking you one last time. If you do not answer, I said I'll put you on a block list for trolling the comments. Answer, do you as a Christian agree that the Quran speaks of your New Testament as the Injeel, which is truth and a light? You're asking me for original portions. He says, and I said to him, if you do not answer, I'll put you on a block list. He says, no, you're shifting the burden of proof again. I mean, this person is just ridiculous now. I said, the burden of proof excludes you from answering questions for the Bible, does it? Okay, since you are not addressing my question, you are now on my block list. He then says, thank you, Mustafa, for demonstrating the burden of shifting fallacies entire thread and failing to meet I've actually met the challenge because I used the Christian standpoint on the Quran. They believe that the Quran speaks about your New Testament as the Injeel, as the truth and the light. This is what Christians themselves say about the Quran. Of course, he got stuck and he can't respond to it at all.